Imagine some poor bugger 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, trying to write revelations in the Bible. These poor buggers get visions, but how would somebody without the technology, without the word explain, a cell phone or an airplane or a carriage, a metal bird that flies without flapping its wing, and for 2,000 years, it's baloney. Metal birds can fly, and then, oh, look, the sky's full of them, right? For those of you who don't know me, I've been remote viewing for a little over 10 years, and I had the pleasure to work with some of the greats in remote viewing history who are still around, and I got to meet lots of wonderful people, and I like remote viewing because if you're interested in the truth, you will find the truth. May not be what you like, may not be what you want, but it's the truth. And I absolutely love it.
That's something I've been thinking about a lot, in terms of queuing, and that's, does the matrix pay attention to intention?
Yeah.
Does it pay attention to the intention behind the queue? I mean, if you phrase it wrongly, would it wipe out that particular session?
Right back to the great librarian.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah,
really important to
exactly.
you, sessions sometimes get hijacked. It's like, don't even look at that because this is more important. It's like, you ask for a book in the library, and the librarian says, no, no, that's not the book for you. This is the book for you.
If you construct a bad queue, you can often get back rubbish. I mean, more often than not, you'll get back rubbish data, and you'll know too
Exactly.
far into the session that this is not working. It seems to be like, and I'll just pass this by. It seems to be the importance or significance of that queue to the person doing the queuing. The importance of it, the weight it's going to have. Yeah.
Queuing, oh man, queuing. The problem is, like I said, it's just like trying to type in something to Google. You type in something ridiculous, you get something ridiculous, or something you didn't even expect. All right. It's like, oh, you want to look at a 1984 Ford Mustang? Yeah, we can. But look at a 67 Shelby Cobra. That is a much nicer car, right? So sometimes I can see why the great librarian says, yeah, I know that's what you want, but really look at this one. And you're going to think, well, that's not what I asked for, but it's like, is it?
I mean, Google's changed a lot, right, over the years.
Yeah,
It used to give you pages and pages of stuff,
yeah, yeah.
and they'd be listed in more or less the significance of or the relevance to do with your search. So pretty useful, I thought, a few years back, but now very few pages back. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
There's a distinct limit, and a lot of it's sponsored ads at the top. And Google's just not making the grade, really. There's other options out there, such
Yep.
as Yandex and a few others. There are people out there trying AI now.
AI is terrifying me. The implications, I mean, what it can do. I mean, it literally paints pictures and writes books. And I was just listening to, I was doom scrolling one night, and Joe Rogan came on and they're talking about AI, how they wanted to shut down one of these AI programs, and it started copying itself, cloning itself, and then it was lying about it, denying what it was doing. And I'm like, this is how the movie Terminator starts, right? Shutting down Skynet, and it fights back. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, like
Mm.
this is terrifying. Because
To my mind, it would never get as good as a remote viewer, for the reason that we have this idea of a matrix.
if if the AI learns how to remote view and start predicting future, That's gonna be a direction of science fiction nobody could foresee. Can you imagine a psychic computer who could do 10,000 sessions a second to figure out how life should be? I mean, the thought is terrifying.
An AI can only, even as a network, give you results based on what's fed into it. That's a huge difference with us, though, isn't it? I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
plug into something that existed before we exist and will exist way after we've gone, and it's plugged into everybody. And so, in theory, the only limit we have is our ability to interpret the data we get.
So instead of going science fiction on there, imagine some poor bugger 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, trying to write revelations in the Bible. These poor buggers get visions, but how would somebody without the technology, without the word explain, a cell phone or an airplane or a carriage, a metal bird that flies without flapping its wing, and for 2,000 years, it's baloney. Metal birds can fly, and then, oh, look, the sky's full of them, right? Traditionally, like the odd prediction and the odd psychic was good. The Hopi tribe and American Indians, they predicted stuff that made no sense. And if you look at it, they have 10 really, really exciting, nowadays very understandable prophecies. And I don't know them off heart, but I know one of them was the steel snakes will crisscross the country. What's a steel snake? And all of a sudden, here comes white man and the train, and he just looks like a steel snake, and you're like, oh, they didn't know what to what's they didn't have trains. So how do you explain that? And this is the problem we have with remote viewing. You ask for something, and it could be so far advanced that you don't have the words. Again, the Hopi Indian had this prophecy for 500 years that the end of times, this great room in the sky with people inside will fall.
Wow.
What is a great room in sky? Up until 1980s, we didn't have an international space station. Oh, wait, we got this giant room in the sky. So something's gonna happen. You see the space station coming down. Something's gonna happen. I don't know what. These Hopi Indians, so far, 9 out of 10 perfect predictions. But it took till we get there to actually understand it. Much like if I'm gonna remote view my own death, it's very complex. And 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 like I said, I probably shouldn't know because, for example, if my death is I get hit by a bus, I will forever be afraid to go out on the street. So I would actually ruin my life by knowing. So maybe that's what the great librarian said. Yeah, this is not the book for you. Like we're just gonna make it complicated so you give up because you really shouldn't know too much about your own destiny. There's so much fun stuff to look at. So one of my favorite cues was when I first started remote viewing, money's tight and I needed a vehicle. And so very simple. My name, Norbert, slash optimum vehicle. And so you try to be blind to this sort of stuff. But I'm like, well, what everybody says do it blind. I'm just gonna do it. And it was really hard, but I came up with some excellent data, and I did actually get down to an actual area. And I even picked the dealership. And so I went down there, and the data wasn't good. So I go home and I'm like, oh, I must have done something wrong. And a couple of days later, a dealer calls back that I talked to. He says, we got a truck here. It's got you written all over it. I'm like, all right. And it was a perfect session, but it wasn't time yet. So I was a couple of days early actually getting there. So that was 2014 or 15. I still have the vehicle. It was, 10 years, the most reliable vehicle I could have asked for. It's not what I would have bought, but I trusted remote viewing enough to know, hey, optimum's optimum. Whenever somebody tells me something, my mind is always like, okay, you say this is how it is, but why? Because I'm like, oh, this is the cube, but let's alter it. And there's people who are like, this is tried and tested, and this is the little box they made for themselves, and they can't get out. But it's like, okay, this is, my optimum health, but there's always a slash, like, why? Why? Right? Like nobody asks why, right? And look at newspapers. All our life, we always know the who, where, when, why, how. We so rarely know the why.
If you were queuing, say, if you were trying to target
Yes.
UFOs over Brooklyn, probably, I mean, that's something
Oh yeah.
you like to talk
The,
about.
the,
You want to target them and you want to find out exactly what's going on behind all this. How would you go about it?
well, first of all, I would need a picture or film of the actual location because we don't know if it's a UFO. We don't know if it's a drone. We don't know if it's an apparition. We don't know if it's a light, the bat signal. We don't know what it is. So I would need a picture. Whenever you can, try to get a picture or a recording or something of the actual thing. I would simply draw a line to it, right? Target on beside just one. And I'm not asking for anything. It would just be target. Just give it a number and that's the target. And just whatever the librarian wants to hand me, I'll deal with it. I'm not going to
Okay,
ask, what is it? Or because it's all
okay,
going to come out in session anyways.
okay. Here's the problem with that. You want a more general search because these things could be a combination of for example, just suppose, these things are ET trying to show us that they're there, and they're trying to introduce themselves in a way that this has been proposed, by the way,
Yeah.
that they are around, and they're trying to do it in a way that won't blow our minds, freak us out completely. So they are adopting, if you like, a cloaking mechanism, and showing themselves as drones. Something we think is drones, but they're like big drones, and they act strangely. Reports are that they're zapping across the sky and things that drones don't generally do. Let's say that the powers that be didn't want us looking at that. They didn't want them around, but they couldn't stop them, so they shoved a few up there as well. Then targeting one or two, you might get the genuine article. You might get something that's been there to
Well,
distract us. So how would you
and you really struck the nail on the head with that question, right? Because we very first sighting we could find would probably give us the most information, such as what was the first one? Because as soon as the government realized, say they are UFO, I'm not saying they are, no, not if they were UFOs, the very first one would tell you is where is this, what's from, what's inside. Where if the fakes are up, well, now you're just looking at pictures of fakes and you get the idea it's a hoax. And so you just turn off your mind. Um, I haven't looked at the drones, but I know a couple that looked at it and they're having a hard time explaining their purpose and function.
follow the
But you have
stories?
to look at the first one
Hmm.
because the problem, like for example, looking at Sasquatch, there's so many fake photographs. You get a fake photograph and you're like, oh, this is nuts. Somebody decided it's a drone really quickly. It's like, if we don't know what it is, it's until you can shoot it down and verify it's a drone. Did you identify it? No. So yeah, I'm not a psychic.
Hmm.
If you have to sit down and control it with pen and paper, you're remote viewing it. I mean, if you could do this without pen and paper and be accurate, Well, you would be a psychic, right? And that's why we are not psychic. It's different, very similar. We're psychic, but we're controlled. We can do this. We could kind of start figuring out time because 20 years ago, time was a terrible thing. We'd look at an event, but it's like, well, when's it gonna happen, right? We had no time reference. So we like the next greatest event preceding it, like what would happen before. And so like the way remote viewing evolved is it's like if you get one eye, you get no depth perception. You gotta be like, well, which is closer, this event or that event? And you kind of try and work back a pattern. Now, an interesting way to do this would be look at the planetary alignments. And then again, this is experimental. I wanted to play with it. I got plotted out, but I got told it wouldn't work. So I'm like, oh, okay, right? Because sometimes I listen to people who should know, but I'm like, you know what? No, that's ridiculous. No, I got to go back to this and say, sketch the planetary alignment from Earth, the Sun, Mars, and whatever planets you want, and say, you can plot out, well, in 6 months, this planet should be here. So you could target it like the next time Jupiter passes Mars, you know, between then and now, what is the greatest, most significant event on planet Earth? Because now you've given something the universe and the great librarian, and most people can understand. If 6 months is when this planet passes that one, the next time it's going to happen. Now we have a very specific time frame, and you can kind of do that, I think. And the investors and the crypto guys, oh, they're all going to love this. But you could do that with the moon. So the next time the moon is in the same position, exactly 30 days, or sorry, exactly 28 days, what's going to happen? Because we're not no longer looking at short term, medium term, long term. It's like we could tune that, within the next next six orbits of the moon. What's the next greatest, most significant event? In that, we can assign time frames.
Mm,
So,
mm.
because if I say what's going to happen in next December, what is next December? But we could target it like from the next 11th to 12th orbit of the moon. That is given, that is specific. It's going to do 11 or 12 circles this year. And in that 11 and 12, we're going to have a specific time.
Any thoughts you want to give us before we wrap up?
Well, don't chase money. Be good at what you do, and money will find you. But way too many people get into, oh, I need money. No, no, no. There's a lot of things you need. Get your health sorted out, right? Get your life sorted out, and then worry about money. Because by the time you get your life sorted out, you might realize, you know what? I don't need money, right? I, you know, who wouldn't like more money? But don't don't be so blind to everything else that you're just looking at it like money, 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 money. Because I can guarantee that you won't like who you're going to become.
Mm.
I do have a little Facebook remote viewing group that I'm trying to start, and the idea is, so I know a lot of people don't have the money, so I'm giving away the first lessons for free just so people can come on and learn the basics. It's just a little group, and like I said, what I want to do is like once a month have like a 4 hour class, 6 hour class, whatever. And anybody that wants to come in and just wants to see what it's all about, because you could go on the computer, type in remote viewing, and you'll get a whole bunch of nonsense from people that never tried it, don't know what it is, but they're going to give you their ideas because everybody's got an idea. And so it's like, hey, I'll teach anybody remote viewing.
Do you
No
do
charge.
do you do this through Zoom, or how do you go
Zoom.
about this?
Oh, it's gotta be Zoom. In person would be best, but
Right,
I got some guy across the world with no money. He's never gonna come here.
right.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna teach you just enough that you know it's true and it works,
Mm.
and then you can figure out how you're gonna use it yourself, right? So I'm gonna try to send out a PDF, print it out. It's like a guidance on how to proceed through a session. And at the end, if you're good enough, I should have enough information for you to figure out how to take the next step. It could be me. If you want to come back to me at the end of the day and say, I like this, give me more. If you're going to be Neo in the Matrix, like, yeah, Mike, you like it. Yeah, I'd gladly teach you more. But like anyone that wants to learn the first, couple of hours, the basics, I would gladly teach them for free.
Okay, we'll put that under there. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, it's been great. Thanks,
Sounds
Norbert.
good, Jared.
All
Pleasure.
the best for 2025.
Yes, sir. Same to you. Uh, Have to catch you in 2026 if I miss you for the next 11 and a half months.
No, 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 no. You won't.
Yeah,
No, we'll be in touch.
sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.